Today we're going to walk through the Kinship Care program in Wisconsin. This is a program designed to support a child living outside of her home with a relative. It's an alternative to foster home or other out-of-home placement, with the idea that this is an option for children who can't stay with a parent because of the stress in the house, or maybe it's an instance of abuse or neglect. There are certain types of relatives this child can be placed with. It's not just anybody. And there is a listing of things like aunts, uncles, and grandparents, cousins, nieces, or nephews. But there is a formal definition of relative in the administrative code, and we'll link to that in the description below. The eligibility for who qualifies for kinship care is really threefold. If you answer yes to the following questions, then you're likely eligible for kinship care. Does this meet the basic needs of you as a child? If it's safer that you're with a relative other than the parent. If yes, then you've met the first threshold. Is the placement in the best interest of the child? If yes, you're almost there. And does the child currently or maybe in the near future meet requirements to need protective services if you were to stay in the home with the parent? So those are the three prongs of eligibility when determining if a child is appropriate for kinship care. Now, if we're going to look at eligibility in terms of the relative, the caretaker relative, there's a little bit more that needs to happen behind the scenes to determine if that relative is going to be a good host home for that child. There's going to be background checks, not just for the relative, but other members living with that relative. There's a cooperation standard that you're going to cooperate with the agency that is placing the child with you. There are requirements of making sure that public benefits have been applied for, that if that child is indeed eligible. So it's a little bit of paperwork for that relative, that caretaker relative. There's another cooperation standard of cooperating with the referring parents to child support unless the caretaker relative is granted an exemption, and the kinship living arrangement and eligibility will be reviewed annually. Now, there is a payment that is associated with kinship care. Right now, for 2019, it is set at $244, akin to the foster care payment. This is a county-administered program, and there are kinship care coordinators across Wisconsin in counties and both on tribal lands. There is a distinction between voluntary and involuntary, voluntary placement versus court-ordered placement. If this is a child that is being voluntarily placed with a caretaker relative through the kinship care program, that child is eligible for Badger Care Plus, potentially if they meet all of the other eligibility criteria. If it is court-ordered kinship care, then the child is eligible for foster care Medicaid. That is a guarantee fee-for-service Medicaid full benefit program. It's not income-based or resource-based. Because it's court-ordered care, the Medicaid program is a little bit more generous in making sure that child can get the health care and coverage they need during that court-ordered kinship period. So there are also the enhancements of no co-pays, premiums, or deductibles, and more frequent care schedule. They're using the health check periodicity schedule there to make sure the child can get all of the screenings, immunizations, appointments that they need. You can read more on the kinship care program and find a kinship care coordinator near you. We put a link to the map. We also put a couple resources from the administrative code that define things like relative and that memo that establishes the payment for the calendar year of 2019 for caretaker relatives hosting a child. Thanks for watching.